I never felt that. I never had any trepidation about any of it. When I read the script, there was nothing where your spidey senses tingle and you're like, ooh, maybe you don't want to say that. Like, it all felt pretty above board to me.
Andy habla puntualmente de Los Roses, la nueva película de Jay Roach que llega esta semana al cine. Para mí Andy es uno de los número uno de la comedia actual, así que aproveché para preguntarle cómo se siente en este contexto en el que parece haber un mayor revisionismo sobre lo que nos hace reír y sobre lo que elegimos para hacer humor. Y ya que estábamos, también se lo pregunté a Kate McKinnon, a Zoe Chao y a Jamie Demetrio.
You've been doing comedy for a very long time, and they are seem to be in constant revision or evaluation, especially the last years. And I want to ask you about how do you feel about what we can show or be humorous about, and how do you feel it has changed?
Kate, have you ever thought about this?
I've never thought about that before. Look, whatever's changed, I like it because I think having to be more careful makes you have to think of more ways in to talk about something. And I think it's an interesting intellectual exercise. And I am very glad to be a comedian now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would also say I think there's a lot more analysis and discussion around things like that now, but I think it's always been the case. Comedy is an ever evolving organism. It's reflecting our world. It's reflecting the conversations that are happening in our world. The things that people would joke about in medieval times are not the things we would joke about now. So there's been adjustments being made over the last whatever 10, 15 years, but the same was true of say like the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think it's just an ongoing thing, ever changing.
I think it's probably been changing since it began, and it probably will never stop changing. And I think that's a good thing. I think that generation to generation, there is always a critique based on what we're used to being like done, and a kind of pining for a past that's just sort of irrelevant at this point. And I think that it forces you to find new ways of making people laugh, which I actually think is like the best thing, because it grows a form and it means that it's evolving. This idea that we need to be doing the same thing forever is like the kind of what will lead to a genre becoming stagnant. Sort of something I'm boringly passionate about. But I do think that it's like, I think that the best thing in the world is the idea of something evolving. And if like that has come from a sense of sensitivity or anything, at least it's evolving. Like and it's pushing it, and it stops people resting on crutches and easy ways of making comedy. I think that comedy should be personal and truthful and not reliant exclusively on shock. That's what I think.
Hear, hear. That was lovely.
What about Zoe? What do you think about that? I really agree with you, Jamie. But what do you think, Zoe?
I disagree. I am all about regurgitating what's already been done. I am about the derivative. No, I am in complete support of what Jamie said. Yeah, I think all art forms should evolve, and reflect the time in which they're made. And that's like what's so thrilling about art. Is that it isn't stagnant, it's a living organism. So yeah, it's very exciting to get to see the ways in which comedy is adapting and being articulated.
You are still a failure.
You got fired.
Fired?
I sense trouble.
This isn't the first time that Shay does a comedy regarding couples and their dynamics. And of course, I'm referring to Meet the Parents, that it's a comedy classic. What do you think that Shay has in terms of the vision of how he represents a couple that make him unique?
Jay, I worked with Jay before on the film Bombshell, which is a drama. And so I knew him in that context. But even there, he was very free, very gentle. He's a wonderful, warm, gentle man. And it's just always grounded in people's connection with one another. That's, you know, in every comedy he's done, there are real relationships within it, and he's very concerned with nailing the comedy of it, but also with grounding it in real human relationships. And I think that's his special sauce. Well, he has several special sauces, and that's one of them.
What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think he has empathy for all his characters.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, there's no one sort of disposable, I think, in his mind. So he wants to make sure everyone's perspective is he's at least attempting to represent. And I think he understands that by doing that, it makes the characters more interesting, more well-rounded, and the story more engaging, even when it's really heightened and farcical. But that's Jay, that's his personality. It's like Kate said, you meet him and you're disarmed because he's so kind. And so, he's open and he lets people in. He's fascinated by people and the world, and it really shows in his work.
I mean, I think what's so smart about the setup of this movie is that you made this point earlier. You get to examine this couple through the lens of other couples, and I think that everyone's kind of exposed. The facades are all cracked by the end, and yeah, I think he does a really great job of taking down American culture and English culture too, while also critiquing, I think, modern relationships and how hard it is to stay in a healthy, loving relationship.
Yeah, agreed. And I generally think, across his work, there's a lot of kind of brutal honesty laced through everything he does. People being kind of, in the great, and a lot of his work with Yorgos Lanthimos. I think there's just I think that it's interesting, kind of putting that sometimes archaic, like, anger through kind of modern romantic couples. I think it's just an intrinsically interesting idea. Yeah.
I don't think you have the capacity to fix your problems.
Are you actually allowed to say that?
Tony McNamara has such a specific, delicious voice. Yes, it's a remake, but this movie feels like it's its own film too. I think he does a really great job critiquing both cultures, both American and English, and sort of, highlighting their differences and also highlighting the hypocrisies and the dents and cracks within the culture. So that's just was really fun to explore inside of the film, and it does feel like a Tony McNamara film.
Yeah. And for you, Jamie?
I mean, again, not to just always echo what the other person says, we're very close. We're something of a hive mind. I think that, I guess what inevitably makes it unique is the specific voice of Tony McNamara. And then I guess within the kind of Tony McNamara universe, it's a kind of rare modern bit of work. He tends to work in kind of period pieces and stuff, not exclusively, but a lot of the time. And it's quite fun seeing a kind of modern romantic comedy. And actually, just generally, I think that the idea of the romantic comedy written by an authored writer, a kind of authored romantic comedy like this is something that feels like it hasn't been around for a while. I think that the idea of the rom-com has kind of fallen into the category of like, I don't know, not something that you'd expect to be written by a kind of specific voice like Tony. So I think that in itself is quite exciting.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point.